Hello, my friends. It's Indiana Holmes for another night of story time. And tonight we continue with Red Harvest, Chapter 17, Reno. She took me over to her living room, backed away from me, resolved, and asked me how I liked the new dress. I said I liked it. She explained that the color was rose beige and that the sides were, something or other. Winding up, "And you really think I look good in it?" "You always look good," I said. "Lou Yard and Pete Finn went calling on old Iliu this afternoon." She made a face at me and said, "You really don't give a damn about my dress. What did they do there?" Powwow, I suppose." She looked at me through her lashes and asked, "Don't you really know where Max is?" Then I did. There was no use in admitting it. I hadn't known all along, I said. "At Willison's, probably. But I haven't been interested enough to make sure." "That's goofy, you. He's got reasons for not liking you and me. Take Mama's advice and nail him quick. If you like living and like having Mama to live too." I laughed and said, "You don't know the worst of it. Max didn't kill Noonan's brother. Tim didn't say Max. He tried to say Max Swain and died before he could finish." She grabbed my shoulders and tried to shake me 190 pounds. She was almost strong enough to do it. "God damn you!" Her breath was hot on my face. Her face was white as her teeth. Rouge stood out sharply like red labels pasted on her mouth and cheeks. "If you framed him and made him and me for him, you've got to kill him now." I don't like being manhandled, even by young women who look like something out of mythology when they're steamed up. I took her hands off my shoulders and said, "Stop belly aching, you're still alive." "Yes, still, but I know Max better than you. I know how much chance anybody that frames him has got of staying alive, and for how long. It would be bad enough if we had got him right, but—" "Don't make such a fuss over it. I've framed millions, and nothing ever happened to me. Get your hat and coat and we'll feed. You'll feel better then." "You're crazy if you think I'm going out. Not with that." "Stop it, sister. If he's that dangerous, he's just as likely to get you here as anywhere. So what's the difference? What difference does it make?" "It makes, you know what you're doing. You know what you're going to do? You're going to stay here until Max is put out of the way. It's your fault, and you've got to look out for me. I haven't even got Dan. He's in the hospital." "I can't," I said. "I've got to go to work. And you've got work to do. You're all burnt up over nothing. Mac's probably forgotten all about you by now. Get your hat and coat. I'm starving." She put her face close to mine, and her eyes looked as if they'd found something horrible in mine. "Oh, you're rotten," she said. "You don't give a damn about what happens to me. You're using me as you use the others. Just that dynamite you wanted. I trusted you." "You're a dynamite, all right, but the rest of it's kind of foolish. You look a lot better when you're happy. Your features are heavy. Anger makes them downright brutal. I'm starving, sister." "You'll eat here," she said. "You're not going to get me out after dark." She meant it. She swapped the rose beige dress for an apron and took inventory of the icebox. There were potatoes, lettuce, canned soup, and a half fruit cake. I went out and got a couple of steaks, rolls, asparagus, and tomatoes. When I came back, she was mixing gin, vermouth, orange bitters, and a quart shaker, not leaving a lot of space for them to move around in. "Did you see anything?" she asked. I sneered at her in a friendly way. We carried the cocktails into the dining room and played the bottoms up while the meal was cooked. The drinks cheered her a lot. By the time we sat down to the food, she'd almost forgotten her fright. She wasn't a very good cook, but we ate as if she were. We put a couple of the ginger ales in on top of the dinner. She decided she wanted to go places and do things. No lousy little runt could keep her cooped up, because she's been square with him, as anybody could be until he got nasty over nothing. And if he didn't like what she had done, he could go climb a tree or jump in the lakes. And we go out to the Silver Arrow where she had meant to take me, because she had promised Reno she'd show up at his party. And by God's sake, she would. And anybody who thought she wouldn't was crazy as a pet cuckoo. And what did I think of all that? "Who's Reno?" I asked. She tied herself tighter in the apron by pulling the strings the wrong way. "Reno Starkley. You'll like him. He's a right guy. I promised him I'd show at his celebration, and that's just what I'll do." "What's he celebrating?" "Well, what the hell's the matter with that lousy apron? He sprung this afternoon." "Turn around, I'll unwind you. What was he in for? Stand still." "Blowing a safe. 6 or 7 months ago. Turlock's, the jeweler. Reno put Collings, Blackie, Whalen, Hank O'Mara, and the little lame guy called Step and a Half. They had plenty of cover. Lou Yard, but the Jewelers Association, Dix, tied the job to them last week, so Noonan had to go through the motions. It doesn't mean anything. They got out on bail at 5 o'clock this afternoon, and that's the last anybody's heard about it. Reno's used to it. He was already out on bail for 3 other capers. Suppose you mix another little drink while I'm inserting myself into this dress." The Silver Arrow was halfway between Personville and Mock Lake. "It's not a bad dump," Dinah told me, and her little Marmon carried us toward it. "Polly DeVito is a good scout. Anything she sells you is good, except maybe bourbon. That always tastes a little bit like it had been drained off a corpse. You'll like her. You can get away with anything out there, so long as you don't get noisy. She won't stand for noise. There it is. See the red and blue light through the trees?" We rode out to the woods into full view of the roadhouse, a very electric-lighted imitation castle set close to the road. "What do you mean she won't like noise and she won't stand for it? What does all that mean?" I asked, listening to the chorus of pistols singing "Bang, bang, bang." "Something's up," the girl muttered, stopping the car. 2 men dragged out a woman between them and ran out of the roadhouse's front door, ran away into the darkness. A man sprinted outside the door and got away. The guns sang on. I didn't see any flashes. Another man broke out and vanished around the back. A man leaned far out in front, 2nd-story window, a black gun in his hand. Dinah blew her breath out sharply. From the hedge of the road, a flash of orange pointed briefly up at the man in the window. His gun flashed downward. He leaned further out. No second flash came from the hedge. The man in the window put a leg over the sill, bent, hung by his hands, and dropped. Our car jerked forward. Dinah's lower lip was between her teeth. The man who had dropped from the window was gathering himself up on his hands and knees. Dinah put her face in front of mine and screamed, "Reno!" The man jumped up, his face to us. He made the road in 3 leaps as we got to him. Dinah had the little Marmon wide open before Reno's feet were on the running board beside me. I wrapped up my arms around him and damn near dislocated them holding on to him. He made it as tough as he could for me, leaning out to try for a shot at the guns that were tossing lead all around us. Then it was over. We were out of range, sight and sound of the Silver Arrow, speeding away from Personville. Reno turned around and did his own holding on. I took my arms in and found that all the joints were still working. Dinah was busy with the car. Reno said, "Thanks, kid. I needed pulling out." "That's all right," she told him. "So, that's the kind of parties you throw?" "We had guests that wasn't invited. You know, the Tanner Road." "Yes." "Take it. It'll put us over Mountain Boulevard, and we can get back to town that way." The girl nodded, slowed up a little, and asked, "Who are the uninvited guests?" "Some plugs that I don't know enough to leave me alone." "Do I know them?" she asked, too casually, as she turned the car into a narrow and rougher road. Let it alone, kid, Reno said. Better get as much out of the heap as it's got. She prodded another 15 miles an hour out of the Marmon. She had plenty to do now holding the car on the road, and Reno had plenty holding himself to the car. Neither of them made any more conversation until the road brought us into one that had better paving. Then he asked, "So you paid off Whisper?" "Mm-hmm." "They're saying you turned rat on him." "They would. What do you think?" "Ditching him was all right, but throwing in a dick and crackling with the works to him is kind of sour. Damn sour, if you ask me." He looked at me while he said it. He was a man of 34, 35, fairly tall, broad and heavy, without any fat. His eyes were large, brown, dull, and set far apart in long, light, shallow, kind of like a horse's face. It was a humorless face, stolid, but somehow not unpleasant. I looked at him and said nothing. The girl said, "If that's the way you feel about it, you can—" "Look out!" Reno grunted. We had swung around a curve. A long black car was straight across the road in front of us, a barricade. Bullets flew around us. Reno and I threw bullets around while the girl made a polo pony of the little Marmon. She shoved it over from left to the left side of the road, and then the left wheels ride the bank, rode high on the bank, crossed the road again with Reno's weight on one side on the inside, got to the right bank under the left wheels just as our side of the car began to lift in spite of our weight, slid us down the road with our backs to the enemy, and took us out of the neighborhood by the time we had emptied our guns. A lot of people had done a lot of shooting, but so far as we could tell, nobody's bullets had hurt anybody. Reno, holding the door with his elbows, pushing, he clipped it into his automatic and said, "Nice work, kid. You handled the bus like you meant it." Dinah asked, "Where now?" "Far away first. Just follow the road. We'll have to figure out how it looks. Looks like the guy that got in the Berg closed up on us. Keep your dogs on it." We put 10 or 11 more miles between Personville and us. We passed a few cars, saw nothing. Nothing to show, anyway. We weren't being chased. At least I didn't think so. A short bridge rumbled under us, and Reno said, "Take a right turn at the top of the hill." We took it into a different road and wound between the trees on the side of the rock-ridged hill. 10 miles an hour was fast going here. After 5 minutes of creeping along, Reno ordered a halt. We heard nothing, saw nothing. During the half hour, we sat in darkness. Then Reno said, "There's an empty shack a mile down the way. We'll camp there, huh? There's no sense in trying to crash the city line again tonight." Dinah said she would prefer anything to being shot at again. I said it was all right with me, though I would rather have tried to find some path back to the city. We followed the dirt track cautiously until our headlights settled on a small clapboard building that badly needed the paint it never got. "Is this it?" Dinah asked Reno. "Uh-huh." "Stay here until I look it over." He left us, appearing soon in the beam of our lights at the shack door. He fumbled with his keys at the padlock, got it off, opened the door, and went in. Presently, he came to the door and called, "All right, come in and make yourselves at home." Dinah cut off the engine, and we got out of the car. "Is there a flashlight in the car?" I asked. She said, "Yes." Gave it to me and yawned. "My God, I'm tired. I hope there's something to drink in the hole." I told her I had a flask of scotch. The news cheered her up. The shack was a one-room affair that held an army cot covered with brown blankets, a deal table, and a deck of cards and some gummy poker chips on it, a brown iron stove, 4 chairs, an oil lamp, dishes, pots, pans, and buckets, 3 shelves with canned food on them, and a pile of firewood and a wheelbarrow. Reno was lighting the lamp when we came in. He said, "Not so tough. I'll hide the heap, and then we'll be all set till daylight." Dinah went over to the cot, turned back the covers, and reported, "Maybe there's things in it, but anyway, it's not alive. It's not alive with them. Now, let's have that drink." I unscrewed the flask and passed it to her while Reno went to hide the car. When she had finished, I took a shot. The purr of Marmon's engine got fainter. I opened the door and looked out. Downhill, through the trees and the bushes, I could see broken chunks of white light going away. When I lost them, for good, I returned indoors and asked the girl, "Have you ever had a talk or had to walk home before?" "What?" "Reno's gone with the car. The lousy tramp. Thank God he left us here with a bed anyway." "That'll get you nothing." No. Reno had a key in his dump. 10-1, the birds after him. Know about it? That's why he ditched us. We're supposed to argue with them, hold them off his trail for a while. She got up wearily from the cot, cursed Reno, me, all men from Adam on, and disagreeably said, "You know everything. What do we do next?" "We find a comfortable spot in the great open spaces, not too far away, and wait to see what happens. I'm going to take the blankets. Maybe one won't be missed, but you'll tip our mitts if you take more than that." "Damn your mitts," she grumbled, but she took only one blanket. I blew out the lamp, padlocked the door behind us, and with the help of a flashlight picked a way through the undergrowth. On the hillside above we found a little hollow from which the road and shack could not too dimly be seen through the foliage, thick enough for us to hide unless we showed a light. I spread the blanket there and we settled down. The girl leaned up against me and complained that the ground was damp and that she was cold in spite of her fur coat, that she had cramps in her legs, and that she wanted a cigarette. I gave her another drink from the flask. That bought me 10 minutes apiece. Then she said, "I'm catching a cold. By the time anybody comes, if they ever do, I'll be sneezing and coughing loud enough to be heard in the city." "Just once," I told her. "Then you'll be all strangled." "There's a mouse or something under the blanket, crawling under the blanket." "Probably a snake." "Are you married?" "Don't start that." "Then you are." "No." "I'll bet your wife's glad of it." I was trying to find a suitable comeback to that wisecrack when a distant light gleamed up the road. It disappeared as, "Shh!" The girl. What is it?" she asked. "A light. It's gone now. Our visitors have left their car and are finishing the trip on foot." A lot of the time went by. The girl shivered with her cheek warm against mine. We heard footsteps, saw dark figures moving on the road around the shack, without being sure whether we did or didn't. A flashlight ended our doubt by putting a bright circle on the shack's door. A heavy voice said, "We'll let the broad come out." There was half a minute of silence while they waited for a reply from the indoors. Then the same heavy voice asked, "Coming?" Then more silence. Gunfire, a familiar sound tonight, broke the silence. Something hammered the boards. "Come on," I whispered to the girl. "We'll have to try their car while they're making a racket." "Let them alone," she said, pulling my arm down as I started up. "I've had enough of this for one night. We're all right here." "Come on," I insisted. She said, "I won't," and she wouldn't, and presently, while we argued, it was too late. The boys below had kicked in the door, found the hut empty, and were bellowing for their car. It came, took 8 men aboard, and followed Reno's track down the hill. "We might as well move in," I said. "It's not likely they'll be back this way tonight." "I hope to God there's some scotch left in that flask," she said, as I helped her stand up. Chapter 18. Painter Street. The shack's supply of canned goods didn't include anything that tempered us for breakfast. We made the meal of coffee and cooked in a stale water from a galvanized pail. A mile from walking brought us to a farmhouse where there was a boy who didn't mind earning a few dollars by driving us to town in the family Ford. He had a lot of questions, to which we gave him phony answers or none. He set us down in front of a little restaurant in Upper King Street, where we ate quantities of buckwheat pancakes and bacon. A taxi put us on Dinah's door a little bit before 9 o'clock. I searched the place for her, from the roof to the cellar, and found no signs of visitors. "When will you be back?" she asked as she followed me into the door. "I'll try to pop in between now and midnight, if only for a few minutes. Where does Lou Yard live?" 1622 Painter Street. Painter's 3 blocks over. 1622's 4 blocks up. "Where are you going to do there?" Before I could get an answer, she put her hands on my arm and begged, "Get Max, will you? I'm afraid for him." Maybe I'll sick Noonan on him a little later. Depends on how things work out. She called me a damn double-crossing something or other who didn't care what happened to her as long as his duty and his dirty laundry had got work done. "That's all the dirty work that we got done," she said. And I agreed. It was dirty work. I went over to Painter Street, 1622, a red brick house with a garage under the front porch. A block up the street, I found Dick Foley in a hired drive-yourself Buick. I got in beside him, asking, "What's doing?" Spot 2 out of 30. Spot 2 out of 33. Office to Wilson's. Mickey 5. Home. Busy. Kept. Plant. Off 3-7. Nothing yet. That was supposed to inform me that he had picked up Lou Yard at 2 the previous afternoon, had shadowed him to Wilson's at 3:30, where Mickey had tailed Pete, had followed Yard away at 5 to his residence, and had seen people going in and out of his house, but had not shadowed any of them, had watched the house until 3 this morning, and had returned to the job at 7, and since then had seen nobody in or out. "You'll have to drop this and take the plant onto Wilson's," I said. "I hear whisper thalers holing up there, and I kept on him until I make up my mind whether to turn up for Noonan or not." Dick nodded and started the engine grinding. I got out and returned to the hotel. There was a telegram from the old man. "Send by first mail full explanation of present operation and circumstances under which you accepted it, with daily reports to date." I put the telegram in my pocket and hoped things would keep on for breakfast. To have sent him the dope he wanted at the time would have been the same as sending my resignation. I bent a fresh collar around my neck and trotted over to the city hall. "Hello," Noonan greeted me. "I was hoping you'd show up. Tried to get to your hotel, but they told me you hadn't been in." He wasn't looking well this morning, but under his glad handing, he seemed for a change genuinely glad to see me. As I sat down, one of his phones rang. He put the receiver to his ear and said, "Yes." Listened for a moment, said, "You better go out there yourself, Mac," and had to make 2 attempts to get the receiver back on the prong before he succeeded. His face had gone a little doughy, but his voice was almost normal as he told me, "Lou Yards has been knocked off. Shot, coming down his front steps, just now." "Any details?" I asked while I cursed myself for having pulled Dick Foley away from Painter Street just an hour too soon. That was a tough break. Noonan shook his head, staring at his lap. "Shall we go out and look at the remains?" I suggested, getting up. He neither got up nor looked up. "No," he said wearily to his lap. "To tell the truth, I don't want to. I don't know as I could stand it just now. I'm getting sick of this killing. It's getting to me. On my nerves, I mean." I sat down again, considered his low spirits, and asked, "Who do you guess killed him?" "God knows," he mumbled. "Everybody's killing everybody. Where's it all going to end? Think Reno did it?" Noonan winced, started to look up at me, changed his mind, and repeated, "God knows." I went at him from another angle. "Anybody knocked off in the battle at Silver Arrow last night?" "Only 3. Who were they?" "A pair of Johnson brothers named Blackie Whalen and Put Collings. That only got on the bail around 5 yesterday. and Dutch Wall, a gorilla. What was it all about? Just a roughhouse, I guess. Seems that Put and Blackie and the others got out with them celebrating with a lot of their friends, and it wound up in smoke. All them and Lou Yard's men? I don't know anything about that, he said. I got up and said, "Oh, all right," and started for the door. "Wait," he called. "Don't run off like that." I guess they were. I came back to my chair. Noonan watched the top of his desk. His face was gray, flabby, damp, like fresh putty. Whispers staying at Wilson's, I told him. He jerked his head up. His eyes darkened. Then his mouth twitched, and he let his head sag again. His eyes faded. "I can't go through with it," he mumbled. "I'm sick of this butchering. I can't stand any more of it." Sick enough to give up the idea of an evening and evening the score for Tim's killing? "If that'll make peace," I asked. "I am." "That's what started it," I reminded him. "If you're willing to call it off, it ought to be possible to stop it." He raised his face and looked at me with his eyes like they were dogs looking at a bone. "The other ought to be as sick of it as you are," I went on. "Tell them how you feel about it. Have a get-together and make peace." "They'd think I was up to some kind of trick," he objected. "Have the meeting at Wilson's. Whisper's camping there. You'd be the one risking tricks going on there. Are you afraid of that?" He frowned and asked, "Will you go with me?" "If you want me." "Thanks," he said. "I'll try it." Chapter 19. The Peace Conference. All the other delegates to the Peace Conference were on hand when Noonan and I arrived at Wilson's home at the appointed time, 9 o'clock at that night. Everybody nodded to us, but the greetings didn't seem to go any further than that. Pete the Finn was the only one I hadn't met before. The bootlegger was the big-boned man of 50, with a completely bald head. His forehead was small, his jaws enormous, wide, heavy, bulging with muscle. We sat around Wilson's library table. Old Iliu sat at the head. The short clipped hair on his round pink skull was like silver in the light. His round blue eyes were hard, domineering, under their bushy white brows. His mouth and chin were horizontal lines. On his right, Pete the Finn sat watching everybody with tiny black eyes that never moved. Reno Starkley sat next to the bootlegger. Reno's sallow horse face was as stolidly dull as his eyes. Max Thaler was tilted back in his chair on Wilson's left. The little gambler's carefully pressed pants legs were carelessly crossed. A cigarette hung from one of the corner of his tight-lipped mouth. I sat next to Thaler. Noonan sat on the other side. Ilya Wilson opened the meeting. He said things couldn't go on the way they were going. We were all sensible men, reasonable men, grown men, who had seen enough of the world to know that man couldn't have everything his own way, no matter who he was. Compromises were things everybody had to make sometimes. To get what he wanted, a man had to give the other what they wanted. He said he was sure that what we all wanted most right now was to stop the insane killing. He said he was sure that everything he could be done to be frankly discussed and settled within the hour without turning Personville into a slaughterhouse. It wasn't a bad oration. When it was over, there was a moment of silence. Thaler looked past me at Noonan as he expected something of him. The rest of us followed his example, looking at the chief of police. Noonan's face turned red as he spoke huskily. "Whisper, I'll forget you killed Tim." He stood up, held out a beefy paw. "Here's my hand on it." Thaler's thin mouth curved into a vicious smile. "Your bastard of a brother needed killing, but I didn't kill him," he whispered coldly. Red became purple in the face of the chief. I said loudly, "Wait, Noonan. We're going at this all wrong. We won't get anywhere unless everybody comes clean. Otherwise, we'll all be worse off than before. McSwain killed Tim, and you know it." He started at me with the dumbfounded eyes. He gaped. He couldn't understand what I had done to him. I looked at the others, tried to look virtuous as hell, asked, "That's settled, isn't it?" Let's get the rest of the kicks squared. I addressed Pete and the Finn. How do you feel about yesterday's accident at your warehouse and the 4 men? One hell of an accident, he rumbled. I explained. Noonan didn't know you were using the joint. He went there thinking it was empty, just to clear the way for a job in town. Your men shot first, and then he really thought he had stumbled into Thaler's hideout. When he found he'd been stepping in your puddle, he lost his head and touched off the place. Thaler was watching me with a hard, small smile in his eyes and mouth. Reno was all dull and stolidity. Ilya Wilson was leaning toward me, his eyes sharp and wary. I don't know what Noonan was doing. I couldn't afford to look at him. I was in a good spot if I played my hand right, and in a terrible one if I didn't. The men, they get paid for taking chances, Pete the Finn said. For another 25 grand, that'll make it all right. Noonan spoke quickly and eagerly. All right, Pete. All right, I'll give it to you. I pushed my lips together to keep from laughing at the panic in his voice. I could look at him safely now. He was licked, broken, willing to do anything to save his fat neck, or try to. I looked at him. He wouldn't look at me. He sat down and looked at nobody. He was busy trying to look at us as if we didn't expect to be carved apart before we got away from the wolves to whom I had handed him. I went on with the work, turning to Ilya Wilson. Do you want to squawk about your bank being knocked over, or do you like it? Max Thaler touched my arm and suggested, we could tell better maybe who's entitled to beef if you just give us what you've got first. I was glad to. Noonan wanted to nail you, I told him, but he either got the word or expected to get the word from Yard and Wilson here to let you alone. So he thought if he had the bank looted and framed you for it, your backers would ditch you and let him go after you right. Yard, understand? Was supposed to put his okay on all the capers. You'd be cutting into his territory by gypping Wilson. That's how it would look. And that's how it was supposed to make them hot enough that they'd help Noonan cop you. He didn't know you were here. Reno and his mob were in the can. Reno and Yard's pup. But he didn't mind crossing up his head man. He already had an idea that he was ready to take the burg away from Lou. I turned to Reno and asked, isn't that it? He looked at me woodenly and said, you're telling it. I continued telling it. Noonan fakes a tip that you're at Cedar Hill and takes all the coppers he can't trust out there with him, even cleaning the traffic detail out of Broadway so that Reno would have a clear road. McGraw and the Bulls that are in the play let Reno and his mob sneak out of the Hooskow to pull the job and duck back in. Nice thing, alibis. Then they got sprung on bail a couple hours later. It looks as if Lou Yard tumbled. He sent Dutch Jake Wall and some other boys out to the Silver Arrow last night to teach Reno and his pals not to take things into their own hands like that. But Reno got away and got back to the city. It was either him or Lou then. He made sure which it would be by being in front of Lou's house with a gun when Lou came out this morning. Reno seems to have had a tight dope, because I noticed that right now he's holding down a chair that would have been Lou Yard's if Lou hadn't been put on ice. Everybody was sitting very still, as if to call attention to how still they were sitting. Nobody could count on having any friends among those present. It was no time for careless motions on anybody's part. If what I had to say meant anything, one way or the other, to Reno, he didn't show it. Thaler whispered softly, didn't you skip some of it? You mean the part about Jerry? I kept on being the life of the party. I was coming back to that. I don't know whether he got away from the can or you crushed it out and was caught later, or whether he didn't get away or why. And I don't know how willingly he went along on the bank caper, but he did go along, and he was dropped and left in front of the bank because he was your right bower, and his being killed there would pin the trick on you. He was kept in the car till getting away was on. Then he was pushed out and was shot in the back. He was facing the bank with his back to the car when he got his. Thaler looked at Reno and whispered, "Well?" Reno looked with dull eyes at Thaler and asked him calmly, "What of it?" Thaler stood up, "Deal me out," and walked to the door. Pete the Finn stood up, leaning against the table with big bony hands, speaking from deep in his chest. "Whisper?" And then Thaler had stopped and turned face to face with him. "I'm telling you this, you, Whisper, and all of you, that damn gun works is out. No more gun work. All of you understand it? You've got no brains to know what's best for yourselves. So I'll tell you, this busting the town open is no good for business. I won't have it anymore. You be nice, boys, or I'll make you. I got one army of young fellows that know what to do on any end of a gun. I got to have them in my racket. If you got to use them on you, I'll use them on you. You want to play with gunpowder or dynamite? I'll show you what playing is. You like to fight? I'll give you fighting. Mind you, mind what I tell you. That's all." Pete the Finn sat down. Thaler looked up, thoughtful for a moment, and went away without saying or showing what he'd thought. His going made the others impatient. None wanted to remain until anybody else had time to accumulate a few guns in the neighborhood. In a very few minutes, Ilya Wilson and I had the library to ourselves. We sat and looked at one another. Presently he said, "How would you like to be chief of police?" "No, I'm a rotten errand boy." "I don't mean with this bunch. After we've got rid of them and got another just like them." "Damn you," he said. "It wouldn't hurt to take a nicer tone to a man old enough to be your father, who curses at me and hides behind his cage." Anger brought a vein out blue in his forehead. Then he laughed. "You're a nasty talking lad," he said, "but I can't say you haven't done what I paid you for. A swell lot of help I've got from you. Did you need wet nursing? I gave you the money and a free hand. That's what you asked for. What more did you want?" "You old pirate," I said. "I blackmailed you into it, and you played against me all the way till now, when even now you can see that they're hell-bent on gobbling each other up. Now you talk to me about what you did for me." "Old pirate," he repeated. "Son, if I'd been a pirate, I'd still be working for the Anaconda for wages, and there'd be no Personville Mining Corporation. You're a damn little woolly lamb yourself, I suppose. I was had, son, where the hair was short. There were things I didn't like, worse, things that I didn't know about until tonight, but I was caught and had trouble to bide my time. Why, since that Whisper Thaler has been here, I've been a prisoner in my own home, a damn hostage." "Tough. Where do you stand now?" I demanded. "Are you behind me?" "If you win." I got up and I said, "I hope to Christ you get caught with them." He said, "I reckon you do, but I don't." He squinted his eyes merrily at me. "I am financing you. That shows I mean well, don't it?" "Don't be too hard on me, son. I'm kind of..." I said, "Go to hell," and I walked out. Chapter 20. Laudanum. Dick Foley in his hired car was at the next corner. I had him drive me over to within a block of Dinah Brand's house and walked the rest of the way. "You look tired," she said when I had followed her into the living room. "Been working?" attending a peace conference out of which at least a dozen killings ought to grow. The telephone rang. She answered it and called me. Reno Starkey's voice. I thought maybe you should like to hear about Noonan being shot to hell and gone when he's got out of his heap in front of that house. You never saw anybody that was deader. Must have had 30 pills pumped into him. Thanks. Dinah's big blue eyes asked questions. First, fruits of the peace conference plucked by Whisper Thaler, I told her. Where's the gin? Reno, talking, wasn't it? Yeah. He thought I'd like to hear about Poisonville being all out of police chiefs. You mean? Noonan went down tonight, according to Reno. Haven't you got any gin? Or do you like making me ask for it? You know where it is. Been up to some of your cute tricks? I went back into the kitchen, opened the top of the refrigerator, and attacked the ice with an ice pick that had a 6-inch all-sharp blade set in a round blue and white handle. The girl stood in the doorway and asked questions. I didn't answer them while I was put to ice. Gin, lemon, juice, seltzer together in 2 glasses. What have you been doing? She demanded as we carried our drinks to the dining room. You look ghastly. I put my glass on the table, sat down facing it, and complained. This damn burg's getting to me. If I don't get away soon, I'll be going blood simple like the natives. There's been what? 12.5 murderers since I've been here? Donald Wilson, Ike Bush, the 4 Wops, the Dick at Cedar Hill, Jerry Lou Yard, Dutch Jake, Blackie Whalen, and Put Collings at Silver Arrow, Big Nick, the Copper iPodded, the Blonde Kid, Whisper, Dropped Here, Yakima Shorty, Old Ilio's Prowler, and now Noonan. That's 16 of them in less than a week, and more's coming up. She frowned at me and said sharply, Don't look like that. I laughed and went on. I've arranged a killing or 2 in my time, when they were necessary, but this is the first time I've ever got the fever. It's the damn burg. You can't go straight here. I got myself tangled at the beginning when old Iliu ran up on me. There was nothing I could do to try to set the boys against each other. I had to swing the job the best I could. How could I help it? The best was bound to lead to a lot of killing. The job couldn't be handled any other way without Iliu's backing. Well, if you couldn't help it, what's the use of making a lot of fuss over it? Drink your drink. I drank about half of it, felt the urge to talk some more. Play with murder enough, and it gets you one of 2 ways. It makes you sick, or you get to like it. It got Noonan the first way. He was green around the gills after Yard was knocked off. All stomach gone out of him, willing to do anything to make peace. I took him in, suggested that he and the other survivors get together and patch up their differences. We had a meeting at Wilson's tonight. It was a nice party, pretending I was trying to clear away everybody's misunderstandings by coming clean all around. I stripped Noonan naked and threw him to them. Him and Reno. That broke up the meeting. Whisper declared himself out. Pete told everybody where he stood. He said battling was bad for his bootlegging racket, and anybody who started anything from then on could expect to have his booze guards turned loose on them. Whisper didn't look impressed, neither did Reno. They wouldn't be, the girl said. Why did you do to Noonan what you did? I mean, how did you strip him and Reno? I told her the others had known all along that McSwain killed Tim. That was the only lie I told them. Then I told them about the bank stick-up being turned by Reno and the chief, with Jerry taken along and dropped on the premises to tie the job to Whisper. I knew that's the way it was, if you told me right. About Jerry getting out of the car, starting toward the bank and being shot. The hole was in his back, fitting with that. McGraw said the last scene of the stick-up car was when it turned into King Street. the boys would be returning to City Hall, to their jail alibi. But didn't the bank watchman say he shot Jerry? That's the way it was in the papers. He said so, but he'd say anything and believe it. He probably emptied his gun with his eyes shut, and anything that fell was his. Didn't you see Jerry drop? Yes, I did. He was facing the bank, but it was all too confused for me to see who shot who. There were a lot of men shooting and, yeah, they'd see to that. I also advertised the fact that at least it looks like a fact to me that Reno plugged Lou Yard. This Reno is a tough egg, isn't he? Noonan went away watery. But all they got out of Reno was, what of it? It was a nice and gentle, manly way of saying something. They were evenly divided, Pete and Whisper against Noonan and Reno. But none of them could count on his partner backing him up if he made a play. And by the time the meeting was over, the pairs had been split. Noonan was out of the count, and Reno and Whisper against each other, and Pete against them. So everybody sat around and behaved and watched everybody else while I juggled death and destruction. Whisper was the first to leave, and he seems to have had time to collect some rods in the front of Noonan's house by the time the chief reached home. The chief was shot. If Pete and Finn meant what he said, and he was the look of a man who would, he'll be out after Whisper. Reno was as much to blame for Jerry's death as Noonan, so Whisper ought to be gunning for him. Knowing it, Reno will be out to get Whisper first, and that will set Pete on his trail. Besides that, Reno will have come over to my side. Having given me support, I needed to swing the play legally. I could have done that, but it's easier to have them killed off. Easier and sure. And now that I'm feeling this way, more satisfying. I don't know how I'm going to come out of this with the agency. The old man will boil me in oil if he ever finds out what I've been doing. It's this damn town. Poisonville is right. It's poisoned me. Look, I sat at Wilson's table tonight, and I played them like you'd play trout, and got just about as much fun out of it. I looked at Noonan and knew he hadn't a chance in 1,000 of living another day because of what I'd done to him. And I laughed, and I felt warm and happy inside. That's not me. I've got a hard skin all over what's left of my soul. And after 20 years of messing around with crime, I can look at any sort of murder without seeing anything in it but my bread and butter, the day's work. But this, getting a rear out of planning deaths, is not natural to me. It's what this place has done to me. She smiled too softly and spoke too indulgently. You exaggerate so, honey. They deserved all they got. I wish you wouldn't look at that. You make me feel creepy. I grinned, picked up my glasses, and went out to the kitchen for more gin. When I came back, she frowned at me over in anxious dark eyes and asked, Now, what did you bring the ice pick for? To show you how my mind's running. A couple of days ago, if I thought about it at all, it was good tool to pry off any chunks of ice. I ran a finger down its half-foot of round steel blade to the needle point. Not a bad thing to pin a man to his clothes with. That's the way I'm betting, on the level. I can't even see a mechanical cigarette lighter without thinking of filling one with nitroglycerin for somebody if you don't like. There is a piece of copper wire lying in the gutter in front of your house, thin, soft, just long enough to go around the neck with two ends and hold on. I had one hell of a time to keep from picking it up and stuffing it in my pocket, just in case. You're crazy. I know it. That's what I've been telling you. I'm going blood simple. Well, I don't like it. Put that thing back in the kitchen and sit down and be sensible. I obeyed 2/3 of the order. The trouble with you is, she scolded me, your nerves are shot. You've been through too much excitement in the last few days. Keep it up and you're going to have the heebie-jeebies for fair, a nervous breakdown. I held up a hand and spread my fingers. It was steady enough. She looked at it and said, "That doesn't mean anything. It's inside you. Why don't you sneak off for a couple of days? Rest. You've got things here so they'll run themselves. Let's go down to Salt Lake. It'll do you good." "Can't, sister. Somebody's got to stay here and count the dead. Besides, the whole program is based on the present combination of people and events. Our going out of town would change that, and chances are the whole thing would just have to be gone over again. Nobody would have to know that you're gone, and I've got nothing to do with it." "Since when?" She leaned forward, made her eyes small, and asked, "Now, what are you getting at?" "Nothing. Just wondering how you'd be so disinterested, such a disinterested bystander all of a sudden. Forgotten that Donald Wilson was killed because of you, starting the whole thing. Forgotten that it was the dope you gave me on Whisper that kept the job from petering out in the middle. You know as well as I do that none of this was my fault," she said indignantly. "And it's all past anyway. You're just bringing it up because you're in a rotten humor and you actually do want to argue. It wasn't past last night when you were scared stiff, scared of Whisper, scared he was going to kill you. Will you stop talking about killing? Young Albury once told me Bill Quint had threatened to kill you," I said. "Stop it. You seem to have a gift for stirring up murderous notions in your boyfriends. There's Albury, waiting trial for killing Wilson, that is. There's Whisper, who's got you shivering in corners. Even I haven't escaped your influence. Look at the way I've turned. And I've always had a private notion that Dan Rolfe's going to have a try at you someday." "Dan, you're crazy. Why, Yeah, he was a lunger and down and out, and you took him in. You gave him a home and all the laudanum he wants. You use him for an errand boy. You slap his face in front of me and slap him around in front of others. He's in love with you. One of these mornings, you're going to wake up and find he's whittled your neck away." She shivered, got up, and laughed. "I'm glad one of us knows what you're talking about, if you do," she said as she carried our empty glasses through the kitchen door. I lit a cigarette and wondered why I felt the way I did. Wondered if I was getting psychic. Wondered whether there was anything in this prescient business or whether my nerves were just ragged. The next best thing for you to do, if you do, is you won't go away, will you? But the best thing you could do is go away. The girl advised me and returned the full glasses. "But you won't, will you?" "But the best thing is to get away, get plastered, forget everything in a few hours. I put a double slug of gin in yours. You need it." "It's not me," I said, wondering why I was saying it, but somehow enjoying it. "It's you. Every time I mention killing, you jump on me. You're a woman. You think if nothing's said about it, maybe none of God or only knows how many people in town you might want to kill or who might want to kill you. That's silly. Nothing we say or don't say is going to make Whisper, for instance." "Please don't stop. I'm silly. I'm afraid of the words. I'm afraid of him. Well, why didn't you put him out the way when I asked you to?" "Sorry," I said, meaning it. "Do you think he—" "I don't know," I told her, "and I reckon you're right. There's no use in talking about it. The thing to do is drink, though there doesn't seem to be much body to this gin." "That's you, not the gin. Do you want an honest-to-God rear?" "I drink nitroglycerin tonight." "That's just about what you're going to get," she promised me. She rattled some bottles in the kitchen and brought me a glass of what looked like the stuff we'd been drinking. I sniffed at it and said, "Some of Dan's laudanum, huh? He's still in the hospital?" "Yes. I think his skull is fractured." There's your kick, mister, if that's what you want. I put the dope gin down my throat. Presently, I felt more comfortable. Time went by as we drank and talked, in a world that was rosy, cheerful, full of fellowship and peace on earth. Dinah stuck to gin. I tried that for a while too, and then had another gin laudanum. For a while after that I played a game, trying to hold my eyes open, as if I were awake, even though I couldn't see anything out of them. When the trick wouldn't fool her anymore, I gave it up. The last thing I remembered was her helping me onto the living room Chesterfield. And that, my friends, is the end of chapter 20. I hope you're enjoying the story. This femme fatale of ours is pretty interesting. This Dinah, she seems to be playing with a deck of cards that may be different from the rest of the boys in this game. Well, that's all for tonight, folks. See you tomorrow night to continue Red Harvest. Good night. Love to all.
Please hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notifications button. Thank you very much.